All right, I think we're ready to get started. Thank you so much for joining us for the fourth in our housing webinar series. We're very excited to have you join us today. If you haven't joined us all along, we will be sending out all the recordings and the PowerPoints. You can also watch it again on Facebook Live, on Facebook. So lots of ways to see all the webinars that we've done. This is the fourth in our series, and we are being joined today by a few self-advocates and family members to talk about how they achieved independent living. We at BPDD, we really wanted to bring this series to as many people as possible to really talk about living independently in the community. I think the one thing we know that this can be a difficult journey, but we wanted to have you hear about all the ways that you can help achieve that for yourself or your family member. So today we're going to hear some of those successes and some of the challenges that the families or the people faced, but all in all, you know, there is successful community integrated living for people with disabilities. We also want to remind you that if you are interested in that, you should be talking to your family care case manager or your IRIS consultant to really find out how you can achieve that goal also. So just give me a second and I'm going to do what the thing I hate most is share my PowerPoint, but I will get it to work. So hang on just one second. I have to go to one more screen. Does that look good? Somebody give me a heads up.
No, that's still the PowerPoint, like internally. Try hitting from the beginning again.
All right, how look good?
Yep, now it's working.
Awesome. I did it. That's always the first challenge. So we're going to be joined by Cara Swedeen and her mom, Beth. We will also be joined by Kelly Weyer and Barbara Katz. So we're going to get started with Cara. And we're really going to hear about Cara's story to independent living. And Cara also lives with Barbara's son, Ben. So as we go through it, you'll see both Ben and Cara in some of these slides. So Cara, you ready to get started? I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Here we go.
All right. You ready?
Hi, Carefree is room banging in my own apartment.
Yeah, so you and Ben live in your own apartment together, right?
Yes.
Excellent. How long have you lived in that apartment together?
I don't remember.
Couple of years, right?
Right, Mom?
Yeah, if you go to the next slide, or the one after it, I think it has a year on it.
All right. So tell us a little bit about where you work.
I work in a business. Here is my artworking studio, and here is all my cargo stuff.
Excellent. What do you make at the artworking studio? What types of things do you make?
Jewelry.
Oh, jewelry. Yes. So if no one's ever seen Cara's jewelry, She often exhibits at a lot of different conferences, and it's really great jewelry, right, Cara?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. So when did you move into your own place?
September 2016.
2016. So that's almost, I don't know when you moved in, but that's like 6 years. That's a really long time. So it looks like you and Ben having some fun here together. And then that looks like your kitchen in the background.
My kitchen.
Excellent.
Here is our female people who help us learn beef.
So this is one of your supporters here?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. What's her name?
Person.
Does she still work with you?
Nope, not anymore.
No. So sometimes things change, right? Tell us a little bit about where you live.
We took turns hosting holding dinners.
So you live in an apartment complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's other people who live there with you, other young adults, it looks like.
Yep.
So you hosted a dinner party?
Mm-hmm.
That's excellent. It looks like you had quite a few people there.
Yep.
Tell us about what else you do. What is near your house?
Target shopping with friends.
So you live close to shopping and also near friends?
Mm-hmm.
And how about your mom? We just talked about this. She lives pretty close too, right?
Right, Mom?
Yeah, how many minutes away by car, Cara? How many minutes would you say I live from you?
3?
Yeah, 3 to
3.
5.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's good, right? So
Yeah,
you don't
in
have
the
to
middle
live
of
at
the
home with
night.
her, but you can live as close as possible. So if you need anything, right?
Right, Mom?
I'd say right. What do you think?
Right.
Absolutely. All right, tell us, did you look for a lot of different places?
Look for yeah.
Yeah, so you needed a place that you and Ben could afford, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and it looks like a pretty nice spot. You like where you live?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, tell us about having a roommate.
We get on great. I don't know, Mom. I don't.
Do you get along great?
Mm-hmm.
Any fights?
No.
No. Is it hard though for some of your friends to get roommates? Do they have a hard time finding them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have
Did
several
you know?
people- Oh, go ahead.
Did you know Ben before?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you know
And
some
what-
people who lived alone, right? And then some people who like hire somebody to live with them, right?
Correct.
Correct.
And what have you liked best about moving out?
I don't know.
You don't know. It looks like here you definitely, maybe you and Ben go out and do stuff in the community together. Would that be right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have dinner parties? What else? Let's see, maybe your mom has some other thoughts of what other things you do that you like about moving out.
Do you like picking your own things to eat, Cara?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like going to bed whenever you want
Mm-hmm.
and texting in the middle of the night?
Different more.
Yeah, well, sometimes. So what else do you like? Do you like having your own routines?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
I
like-
think
Do you like that I'm not there to tell you what to do all the time?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the best thing about living independently.
Yeah.
And what has been hard? Can you think of things that have not been so easy about moving out?
No.
No, nothing. It's all been really great.
Mm-hmm.
What, have you ever made any mistakes, Cara? What
No.
happened a week or two ago?
I don't remember.
Really? Have you ever gotten locked out?
Mm-hmm.
Has that been hard to figure out?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you came up with a good plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
You went to a neighbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. All right. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I'll ask my coworkers, Tammy and Caitlin, if there's anything there. Cara, is there anything else you might want to tell us?
Nope, that's it.
All right, that sounds great. Thanks a lot. We appreciate you helping us out today. You can stay on and watch the rest of the presentation, though. That would be great. All right, so we're going to move over to Kelly. Kelly is one of our, Kelly is a Partners in Policymaking grad. So I've known Kelly since then. She's also our one of our board members at BPDD. And I know Kelly's story about moving out was very interesting to us. So Kelly, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are?
My name is Kelly. I am from Mukwonago. It's a very small community. I do like Special Olympics, and I work at a vet clinic. And I also have a sister who is a doctor as well. So, that's about it.
All right. And tell us about why you wanted to live independently.
I want to be more independent myself without asking like my parents to do them for me. I have been more confident with myself that I can like take like the taxi service to the work, and I have like a little of a called electric scooter. I would take that down to work at other places. Like I volunteer at the little beach house rescue in town here, and I would I would do other different places too.
And tell us about your experience trying to find a place to live in Mukwonago. I know that was somewhat difficult.
It was very difficult indeed, and it's been hard to find a place, and we've been calling like different apartments in Mukwonago area. Like I called this one place called the Point Apartments, and it was like a 90 waiting list out there, and there's no way I would be able to get into that place. But I finally found an apartment here, and it's right in the neighborhood. It's not too far from my parents' house, so I'm happy that it's closer to the Haas house. And I would have like Mary, she is the co-director of the Haas house. It's like a adult day program service for adults with disability. Will come in and do activities, and I'll do DLS here, so I can like just some sort of services here.
I think the one thing you told me when we talked was that you had used both what's called Section 42 and Section 8, and I think you used Section 42 in New Berlin and Section 8 now. And so they're both affordable type housing, but you actually have used both, which I thought was excellent. And you knew, like that you had used both of those types of housing, affordable housing. Tell us about the services and supports that you receive to live independently.
Like for my services, I have we'll do like cooking, and we'll do like money, math problems, and do like a little bit of exercise, and we'll kind of like talk and hear and there, like talk about other things. If I have some issues with work going on, so we kind of, they'll help me through that. And oh, I also have my own kitty, so I take care of him. His name is Draco. So, and also there's this called taxi service. It's called Seniors on the Go. That's the only taxi service we have available in Mukwonago. We don't really have like buses, transportation. We only have like, they did set up like a crosswalk in Mukwonago. That's kind of nice that they're starting to see that, because Mukwonago is a pretty small town. There's not a whole lot going on there. But it is starting to be like bigger community, because I believe they're building a Goodwill store right now in Mukwonago, which is really nice. So it definitely could use more stores and more restaurants around there.
That's great. And then tell us about what has been the hardest and the best things about moving out.
And so for the hardest thing, when I got the Section 8 housing voucher, when I got it, when we would have like a phone conference, and we'll just be at a phone meeting. And if I don't find anything by the next like 10 or 20 days, then we have to call them and see what the next step we can do. But I'm happy that that didn't happen. So I'm happy that we got something really, an apartment really fast.
Yeah, that's good. And what was what have been the best things?
The best things I really like living by myself is I would do like, I kind of keep myself busy, like do my diamond art around here. I like to watch TV and kind of like clean up a bit in my apartment.
Excellent. And I think the one thing too that we talked about is that you are paying your expenses from your jobs, and that you're pretty independent in that way too.
Yes, and with paying my rent that we have, I will do it online as well. So we pay it from there.
Great. Is there anything else you might want to tell the people who joined today about living independently, or that you think is important for them to know?
Not that I can think of in my top of my head right now. Yeah, I can't think of anything.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're going to move on. Cara, I think you can get off if you need to. We appreciate you joining us. I know you might need to be leaving to go to work. Or someone's coming. All right. So we're going to move on to Beth and Barbara. So Beth Swedeen is Cara's mom, and Barbara Katz is Ben's mom. They live together. As you all might know, Beth is also the executive director for BPDD, and Barbara Katz is the executive director at Family Voices. So, two great advocates, but also two great parents. So we just wanted our format's a little bit different today than it has been in the past. So we're just going to have a little conversation, kind of like we did with Cara and Kelly. And so just to start, maybe if you want to introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of hop into the questions. Beth, why don't you go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Again, Beth Swedeen. I live in Madison. And my daughter Cara lived with me until she was 23. And I think our family's vision was she would always move out. But like then when you break it down to what are the steps to do that, it all became very sort of overwhelming. So I was envisioning her kind of being my roommate and us hanging out together, you know, for quite a while longer than what happened. And then Barbara can talk a little bit about it, but we both joined a Love Inc. Class called Moving On that sort of prepares young adults and their families for moving out. And that sort of got the ball rolling. So I'll hand it over to Barbara.
Thanks, Beth. Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara Katz. I'm mom to 3 adult sons. Ben's my middle son. He's 31 now, and he moved out when he was 25. Ben had seen his older and younger brother move out into their own apartment. He spent time in their apartments. And he, while he thought their apartments were really cool, he couldn't imagine his own apartment. But when we started in that Moving On class, what was really cool is it helped people who had trouble thinking abstractly and sort of like in a what if kind of mode to think about and dream about what it might be like to be in their apartment. And Ben thought about all the food he wanted to eat and what he wanted to watch on TV, and without any limits put on by his dad or me. And so that became very appealing to him. Also, he had the opportunity to start looking at other places. We live in Madison also, and Ben is 7 minutes from our house, not 3, but you know, and he looked at where other young people lived aside from his brothers and thought that those were some pretty cool spaces.
One of the things, and you've touched on it a little bit, both of you have, but you know, the reason we wanted to bring this webinar series was really to talk about, you know, independent living in the community. And so, you know, there are so many different options out there. So why was independent living so important to you as a family and your son or daughter?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for us we knew that, and Cara really, like Ben, didn't really have a lot of interest in moving out. And I'm just going to be honest, I think I made it a little too cushy for her at home. And so she didn't really see it as something that was important to do right away. But I thought that it was important for her to be able to, you know, learn new things and explore and kind of make her own choices and have more direction out of her life. But I also wanted to be safe. Everyone wants a place to be safe. And I knew that a lot of the pre-organized living situations like group homes or adult family homes that I had seen, you know, they're very, a lot of them or most of them are very staff driven. So they're dependent on sort of the schedule of the group and the schedule of the staff. And I knew that that would be hard for her. And I knew it was going to be really important that she have a roommate that she really liked and got along with, or there could be, you know, she needed to pick that roommate. It couldn't be just an assignment. And so and then we had an added challenge during this period, which is that very out of the blue, Cara got diagnosed with a very, very serious heart condition and was in cardiac intensive care like 8 weeks before she moved out. So, so things like being able to control her food intake, her diet, her exercise were really important. And again, you know, in a lot of those congregate living situations, it is sort of like everybody does the same thing, but we needed to be very conscious about no salt and, you know, certain portions and all that sort of thing. And so moving out and having her have, you know, a lot of control over that herself was very important to her health. So those were some of the factors that went into the choice that we made for, and then of course we wanted some place really close in case situations came up, and I had to monitor a lot of her health at first. So
Sure.
So, living 30 minutes away or even across town would have been very challenging.
How about you, Barbara? What
Yeah,
was,
that's a really interesting question. I don't think we actively said independent living was a priority over other situations. However, what led us to independent living was Ben grew up making choices. Ben grew up making choices about how he's going to live his life, what he wants to eat, when he wants to go to sleep, what he's going to watch on TV. And, the whole point of Ben moving out of his family home was during a time where that transition could be really relatively easy, as easy as possible, and managed, not in a period of crisis. So, and it was really opportunities that came up. Ben and Cara ignited a friendship that started actually when they were in preschool. And they knew each other at different points during their lives. And I think what independent living, why Ben made that choice and why we felt comfortable supporting that choice was because it was really a continuation of the way he was living his life in making choices, in sort of calling the shots about how his life was going to go. And for him, what made sense was to move out in a way to sort of continue that. And so he would not be comfortable living with someone he didn't know. He would not be comfortable living with someone who was chosen for him rather than him making that choice. He would not be happy living in a situation where he couldn't make choices about what to eat, when to go to sleep, what to do for fun. And basically setting up the life. I mean, it's been, Ben sort of grew up with the assumption that he would call the shots in his life, like his brothers would call the shots in their lives when they grew up. And so for him, it was just a natural extension of the way he grew up and really the only option that made sense for him.
Excellent. Barbara, I'll start with you on the next question. So tell us a little bit about the process to finding a community and what was important about that community. And I know that Beth touched a little bit about you participated in the Moving On series with Love. So maybe talk about that a little bit too,
Sure.
How that kind of propelled you.
That was a great series in that the young people, Ben and peers of the parents that participated, Ben and the young people had sort of their own track, and they learned all about, from a young person's perspective, what moving out would be, what sort of the joys, the challenges, the responsibilities, all of those pieces, while as family members who supported them, we learned about different housing situations. We learned about Section 8. We learned about Section 42. We learned about what it would mean to own a house or live in an apartment or own a condo. Again, the responsibilities that went along with that. We learned about different things, different kinds of supports that were available. We learned about technology that could help. And so all of those sort of definitely boosted my confidence in knowing that Ben could be safe and well supported living in his own apartment. When Ben was little, we never thought that Ben could ever live without 24/7 support. And with what we learned and was sharing with other families really opened our eyes to what was possible. And that was really important for us to support Ben to be successful.
And Beth, tell us a little bit about how you guys went about finding the community and what was important when you're looking for a particular community for Ben and Cara. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. like I
Okay.
said, something close by was really important. But I think also something that was really safe. I wanted something that was safe and had sort of a backup, a little bit of a backup in it, if possible. And so, and I think that because we're in this moving on group, each of us got homework. And so each family had to go out and do some research on and then they brought it all back. And it was actually a different family who actually found out about Section 42 housing and even found this particular building that they happen to live in now. So, so I think, you know, casting that net out to other families who are interested has been helpful. And just as a follow-up, Ben and Cara have actually hosted other groups since then to do tours in their apartment because there are other family groups, you know, that are kind of doing the same thing. I know there was a group in Mineral Point, and I think almost all those young adults moved out subsequently after they kind of went through it. So that was important. And then we had to really prep ahead of time for safety. And for almost every part of Cara's day, like what's getting up going to look like? She's not an independent stove user. So, you know, what are the safety precautions in the microwave, and what will the support folks do, you know, to set up meals for her that she can heat up or prepare by herself? You know, just all of those little things we had to plan into it too. So, so like the fact that this is a security locked building, that there's a manager on site who actually knows all the tenants, you know, there's about 100 units and this person does know all the tenants. It tends to be a building where people stick around, you know, so there's sort of some visual, like I recognize you in the hallway. So just a lot of those things kind of made it seem like, well, it's probably not going to get any better than this, right? So
And it's not just people with disabilities, right?
No, it's mostly not.
Right.
It's a building where the rent is half to 60% of market value. So almost all the people have some sort of limits to their income. But you know, one of Cara's kindergarten assistants, when she was in kindergarten, lives there. And she's retired now, you know, and lives alone. And there are seniors, and there are families with little kids, and there are students, and it's just a mix. So that's really nice.
Yeah, that
And I
is
have to
very
say
nice.
one thing, just to piggyback off the property manager, you know, and the safety piece. There was several months ago, sort of like an active fire alarm situation. It wasn't a drill, and Ben and Cara did manage to get out, but the property manager let us know that she stopped by their apartment to make sure that they went out to their safe place. And so having them learn about those safe places in the building for tornadoes or for fire, and how to get outside, and sort of the 1 and 2 most important things to remember is something that Ben and Cara worked on a lot at the very beginning when they moved in.
Absolutely. And having that person on site to kind of do that check, that, you know, seems important too for when you're looking for a community. So tell us, Beth, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about the different services and supports you've set up for Cara and Ben.
So we really, I think both Barbara and I, our families kind of looked at their employment first, you know, and built supports for the time they're not at work. So, you know, they both work, they both pay their own rent, and they wouldn't be able to live there, you know, if they didn't work. So when they're not working, you know, what are the supports they need? And that includes for Cara, she does get bored easily. Like she has a lot of FOMO when Ben is gone. And so, you know, making sure that she's got activities, whether they're in person or Zoom activities, you know, when on the off hours from work, you know, she gets home like between 3 and 4 every day. So that's important. And then we'll get into technology later. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and how many, I mean, if you had to say how many hours of support, or, I mean, I think it's good for people to realize maybe
Right.
it's not as much support as they might be thinking, right?
Right. So, right, we do some share support. So they have some weekend support, 4 hours during the day on the weekends. And then, Ben has, his plan is a little bit more, bigger than Cara's. And so his budget for Iris. And so, he has a caregiver who comes after work until like 6:30 or 7. So he does not expressly do supports for Cara, but it's definitely like somebody there that if something happened and she really, really, really likes him. Like they're kind of a unit, like the three of them are kind of a unit. So they all kind of mutually enjoy each other. And so that's, and then we'll get into the technology for overnight, but they do not have live-in support. And, they are two people with pretty on paper heavy support needs, but they don't have because of some technologies that we've been able to use.
And Barbara, how about for Ben? What does that support look like? That might
Right.
be a
So
little
as
bit
I
different.
said earlier, we never envisioned that Ben could live without, until we started exploring things, live without 24/7 support. I mean, it just, as Beth said, Cara was used to a cushy life at her house. Ben was definitely used to a cushy life at our house. And so we just and then we thought, well, let's pare it down to when Ben actually does need support and to stay safe and healthy. And it turned out these 3 hours after work between 3 and 6, 4 and 7, somewhere between there, Ben could get his personal care needs met. He could get his, we switched the time of his medication so he could have assistance with medication. His support of home care to grocery shopping, laundry, all of that he could be assisted with that those 3 hours. And then sometimes if there was an evening activity, that support would extend a little bit for transportation or support at the activity. And then on weekends, that 2 to 6 works for preparing food and grocery shopping and going out into the community and still more laundry because there's, God knows, never ending laundry. But that social piece was added in on the weekends. And so we really were able to sort of pare down what Ben needed supports with, how we could maybe make it at times that are most efficient. And then the biggest surprise was how independent Ben got. I think Ben and Cara were in their apartment for like 3 months. And during that point, I think my husband and I were doing transportation because we were adding different independence pieces at different parts. And we were it was a progression. And at that point, so my husband went to get Ben at his apartment and he was not there. And to get him ready to go at that point, to meet his ride. And he was not there and he had been gone. And we called the transportation place and provider. And in fact, Ben had met his ride earlier than when my husband got there and got himself out independently to his ride and to work, and without even sort of being taught those skills. So Ben turned out to be way more independent, and we learned from him that he was able to learn skills indirectly without them being taught to him directly. So by watching the way he was supported, by watching the way Cara helped him, he just integrated all of that and developed skills that we didn't even think he could develop. So that was pretty amazing. He sort of blew us out of the water with the way he learned his independent skills.
That's great. I think it's that you don't know what they know until given the
Absolutely.
opportunity, right?
Right, absolutely. And I think what's so important is that Ben had the chance to discover these skills himself and show them to us and to others in a time that wasn't a crisis time, that he had that sort of
Right.
space and time to develop them and feel confident.
Absolutely. So Beth, you talked a little bit about the technology that you're using. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, the service that was featured in the third webinar, Night Owl, which I think is available statewide, is something that we use. And I just found out through listening to the webinar last week that they're actually expanding what they offer. So I'm going to check into that. But they have an overnight monitoring system in their apartment so that if the doors were to open after 9 o'clock, they can call into the apartment, or they could call Cara on her cell phone and say, is everything okay? You know, did something happen? And that service runs until the next morning, every night. So that's what they use overnight for support. And sure enough, the 4th of July, Cara is so good at calling them when she or Ben are going to be gone. But we all went to the fireworks, which are up. This is an added bonus of this building. There's a community room with a big porch, and we were all watching them because they were right across the road. So they were just awesome. But we forgot to mention it. And we came down to the apartment afterwards, and there's this strange lady in the apartment, but she had a Night Owl shirt on. And she's like, well, the doors all opened at 9:30 and we called and nobody answered. So we came over to check and see if Ben and Cara were okay. And they were. So we do that. And then the other thing that Ben and Cara both have really upped their game on is the use of their cell phone. So they check in, Cara checks in with me at transition times. If something, if a ride is late, she'll text or call, usually me and whoever's responsible, because she just wants a lot of reassurance. And she uses an alarm on that to get up in the morning. When she lived with me, guess what? She didn't get herself up in the morning. So she uses it, to make notes. She has all her caregivers on text, in the phone. And then we use the Find My Phone app so that I can track, like, if she's out somewhere and a ride is late or she's been delayed or, whatever, I can find kind of where she is. So, we've had some rides that have been circuitous, like an hour and a half long. And I'm like, oh, she should have been back at the apartment. And instead of getting worried, I can kind of use that to see where she is. So I tell everyone, I don't think Cara could have moved out without a smartphone. I just don't think, I don't think she would have the safety, that I could have any peace of mind without a cell phone. But with it, she also has the numbers of some people in the building. There's just backups for her that way.
Sure. Barbara, how about you? Anything you would add about the technology?
No, I would just want to emphasize that Beth's absolutely right. They totally have upped their game with using FaceTime and using texting. Until when Ben had an iPhone before he moved out, he hardly ever used it. He used it to watch videos. But when he moved out, he discovered that texting is a great option for him. And he texts me multiple times of the day, just as touchstones or as check-ins about schedule, or and he will FaceTime when he's super excited about something and when he's super sad about stuff and needs some support. And those have it's invaluable. Whereas I think if he did not have those tools, he wouldn't feel as confident and secure about living on his own, and B, I would be running over there to his apartment a lot more to check. He also has that Find My Phone function, and if I am unsure if he in fact made his ride, I'll check on that before I make any calls. And it's just a really easy way to check in.
And I think maybe just for the audience, if they weren't on last week, about, that night owl, it, there's a lot of privacy with it. It's not like
Absolutely.
cameras monitoring their moves or.
Right. So Benny and Cara don't have any cameras in their home. They have a sensor, a motion detector on their front door, and that's it. And they also have an intercom system that was set up so that when Night Owl calls, they call this line that's sort of broadcast throughout the apartment. Ben, Cara, are you there? And then if they don't answer, someone will come over to the house.
Right.
And so the people that come over are only like 5 minutes away. So
Sure.
in case there was a real emergency and they weren't responding, then then someone is very close. The other thing is it allows Ben and Cara, if they choose to contact someone at Night Owl and say, hey, I need help. And someone can either talk to them through that intercom system or come over directly. So it's another backup for families.
So if you had, what other important things might you want to tell the viewers about, helping Ben and Cara to achieve that independent living? And I'll let Barbara go first.
Yeah, sure. For us, it was totally a leap of faith. I mean, we had no clue if this is something that Ben would like, that would support Ben appropriately, that Beth and I had a lot of contingencies. I think for that first week that they moved out, we had the week set up so that we would spend alternate nights of the week sleeping over at their house. And I think, Beth, what was it, after 1 or 2 nights, they're like, go, we're fine, we've got
Yeah,
this.
we each took a night and decided it was super uncomfortable. And so
Right.
like if they could be on their own, they should be. And that's what happened. They
And that-
were like, get away. Like
They were. And, part of that leap of faith was that Ben was not totally convinced that living independently was what he wanted. Ben has trouble thinking abstractly. So until he's actually put into a situation, he couldn't imagine himself. But man, once he was in that situation, he was like, this is sweet. We picked out furniture together. We picked out his sheets and his towels and, showed him where his clothes would go, showed him where his devices would be plugged in. He picked out the food he wanted to start within his apartment. And once he had those sort of things set up, he was like, I'm good. I don't need, mom and dad around. As long as I have my routines and my stuff around me, I'm okay. So that it was pretty eye-opening for us to see what to have Ben lead the way and show us what he wanted and in fact that he did want to be independent.
How about you, Beth?
I think several things. One is that when Cara and Ben moved out, their lives got a lot bigger than anything that Barbara or I could do on our own. Their networks expanded, the activities they're able to do expanded. They learned skills that made them feel better about themselves. And I'll just share that Cara does have some anxiety issues and, was prone to some self-injurious kinds of things. And over her time moving out, because she's less bored, she's less stressed about being, in her own head, I think a little bit, that's really decreased significantly, because she is happier and she's more engaged. And so I think that's one thing is it's just, I think, been so good for her life. But I think the other thing is that it's been really good for me too, because I actually do have a lot more flexibility because I'm not the direct support giver all the time. And so, I'm not hurrying home from work every day because she's waiting and calling me. And I've gone away on weekends and I've gone away for a week and I've And it's just, before I'd have to have somebody come here. And so I'd have to clean my house and, it's just, and have somebody live here. And so I think it's really been very, very life expanding for both parties, for the family and for the individual. And I think the other thing is that it really when you set it up, it is going to take time. Like there was a month or 2 months that I thought this isn't even worth it. I'm working harder now than when she was living with me, but that was a short amount of time really. And now it's very different. It's very much more freeing, but she's just so much more capable. I mean, young adults continue to grow and develop skills given the opportunities to try them. And so, she's had so many more opportunities. And so she and Ben both have learned things that, the first week, I remember Barbara said, well, Cara's going to have to help Ben with this and this and this and this. And like by the third day, Ben was like, I'm not waiting for Cara to do it. She's too slow. Like I'm doing it myself. And he did everything himself. It was just so funny to watch how quickly they shed all those things that we thought they couldn't do. So those are just a few things.
That's great. We do have some questions. I'm just
Can
gonna.
I just say one other thing? Just one
Please.
final thing before the questions. I think the challenge now is really that we're grappling with is how to continue to support Ben and Cara when Beth and I are not able to be their frontline sort of cheerleaders and organizers. And what happens when we're not around anymore. So that's sort of the next step in our thinking around what do we need to put into place so that their fantastic lives can continue uninterrupted.
Well, and I think that was a big part of the conversation we had in preparation was that doing this planning, not being in a crisis as a family, whether it's the health of someone or the death of someone, like that's why it's important to start this early, and that you saw it as we're going to give it a year. Here's an experiment. We're going to see how it works. And, that you were so, you were both very happy with the success of it and continues on. Just for everyone, we will be sharing the PowerPoint. I don't know if it got shared, but we do have just some of the takeaways from Beth and Barbara, kind of on what they've learned. So within the PowerPoint. So, but I'm going to stop my sharing, and I'm going to look at the chat. One of the things I just saw someone post was it would be good in the future to feature individuals with greater needs of support or behaviors. And I guess just for myself, knowing Cara and Ben, that, they may be two young people who need a lot of support, but you found that they were much more independent. And if that's somebody, like Beth said, looked at them on paper, they are those people who need significant support. Would you say that's true? Or?
Well, neither Barbara or I look at our kids' deficits, but I will say that, Cara has a chromosomal deletion. So it's a significant disability. And, when she was in school, we had all those IEPs where we've never worked with somebody this complex, and, she's got this and this going on. And, and that's not how we live our lives or think now. But I think that if she had a traditional sort of pull out in, non-integrated school experience followed by a congregate type of adulthood, she would look very different. She would look very different than the person that we all know because of the lack of opportunity. And so she's just been blessed with many, many opportunities to try things and to learn over years. Some things have taken years. So
same thing with Ben. I mean, if you look at Ben on paper and read his list of diagnoses, they're impressive, and what you can see is that, what you can't see is that Ben has literally half of his brain. What you can see is that Ben has no use of his right arm or hand. And then there's all of this stuff on paper, right? That it does contribute to who they are. But absolutely, if Ben was raised in a, or went to school in a more traditional setting where he was not fully integrated, if he did not work in the community where there were high expectations of him, if he was not in a family where there, and friends where there were high expectations, he would likely be living in a group place where with 24/7 support, and would not be nearly as proud of what he could do, and probably couldn't do as much as he can do now.
Sure. There's a question about independent living and setting this up via family care or IRIS. And while these families are using IRIS, it's very clear that you can use family care to do the same type of setup for independent living. And that really is the goal of home and community-based services, not just IRIS. So talk to your family care case manager if you're interested in that. But there's no reason that this cannot be achieved through family care. It's not just specific to IRIS. Hang on, I'm just going up. Questions kind of run throughout. Looking for data on minority groups who have achieved equitable or equal access to accessible housing. That is, I don't have any of those details, but we can see if we have any information around that. How prepared are cities to offer this accessible housing? We definitely know that through like affordable housing, that there is a lack of affordable housing. That is a statewide issue. So I think we did our first webinar series. We had Moving Out come and talk about how communities can do this and ways that you can advocate, really getting involved with your local communities when there are developments popping up, and seeing if they are going to offer some type of affordable housing within those new communities. Are good ideas. Questions keep popping up. Hang on.
Yeah, there was, Sally, there was a website that maybe you can add to the PowerPoint that I found with all the affordable housing by state. And that might also
Caitlin
have the
has
racial
that.
data.
Caitlin can put that in the chat because we do have that link. Are there stories of young members of Spanish-speaking families? And I do know that Love Inc. has worked specifically with some Latino families, and we could possibly get people connected if that's something that they're looking for, that have had similar success. So I know Lauren's on here from Love, so I will make sure that we gather some possible information from her. Caitlin has posted the surveys in the chat for the series. I'm just going to ask Caitlin or Tammy if they see any other questions, because they come in a little bit oddly when we're doing these. I don't hear any. All right, well, we are at 1 o'clock, and I neglected to introduce my coworkers, Caitlin and Tammy. So sorry, but they have been helping. We have been coordinating this all along. We really appreciate you all coming. Thank you to our speakers, Beth, Barbara, Kelly, and Cara. We couldn't have done this without you. And we will be sending out follow-up emails for today's recording, but then also for the entire series to anyone who registered. So if you were not able to see the other webinars, we will be sending those out to you so you can watch them and get all the information from the 4-part series. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your time, and take a minute to complete our survey. We would appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.